Okay, today we are talking about Chapter 14, Lesson 4, and Lesson 5. We are going to talk about dividing by decimals. Yesterday we talked about what happens when you divide by a whole number and you get a decimal answer, yes? But today we're going to actually divide by the decimal, okay? Yesterday our divisors were all whole numbers, but today they will be decimals. Make sense? Let's first talk about, so our learning goal, of course, is to divide whole numbers and decimals by decimals. Let's first talk about what happens when you multiply a decimal by 10. So let's take a decimal such as 0.5 and you multiply it by 10. Let's just do it the old way really quick. 0 times 5 is?
0.
0 times 0 is?
0.
Okay, good. 1 times 5 is?
5.
Okay, and then 1 times 0 is? 0. When we add this up at the bottom, what do we get? We get 0, 5, 0, right? Now, how many numbers do I need after the decimal point? 1, so I put 1 here. So what's 0.5 times 10?
5.
Times 10 equals 5. Okay. What do you notice about what happens when you multiply by 10? 0.5 becomes 5. Satvika?
So the decimal point moves
Oh.
one place to the right.
Satvika, notice when we multiply 0.5 by 10, the decimal point moved one place over to the right in the answer, huh? Let's see if that always happens. Let's try 0.25 times 10. Okay, what's 0 times 5? 0, right? 0 times 2 is? 0 times 0 is?
0.
Good. I put a 0 here for the ones or for the tens. 1 times 5?
5.
1 times 2?
2.
Okay. 1 times 0?
0.
Add it all up. 0, 5, 2, 0. How many numbers do I need after the decimal point, Nadia? 2. So 1, 2. 0.25 times 10 equals 2.5. Did the decimal point move over?
Yes.
One spot to the right? Let's see. Here it was. And in our answer, it's over here, huh? So 2.5. So when you multiply by 10, what happens to the decimal point? Let's say it together.
Moves over to the right.
Moves one spot. Multiplying the decimal point, moving the decimal point one place to the right is the same as multiplying by 10. So as we saw, without even doing the multiplying now, we know that 0.5 times 10 is 5.0. Good. 0.75, or let's skip down to this one really quick. 0.82 times 10 will be 8.2. Because all you need to do is move the decimal point over 1 to the right, right? Okay, now 100 is the same as 10 times 10, huh? So if we do 0.75, if we break this down, times 10, times 10, right? Would you say 10 times 10 is the same as 100? Okay, so 0.75 times 10 times 10. How many times would you need to move the decimal point to the right? How many times then? If I'm multiplying by 10 2 times, show me with your fingers, how many times would you move the decimal point to the right? 2 times. So 0.75 times 100 is the same as, if I move it over to the right 2 times, 1, 2, it's the same as 75. Very good. Let's also review what is a divisor, a dividend, and a quotient. Right, Sawyer? So if I have an equation, A divided by B equals C. Are those real numbers? No, those are letters. We call those letters variables. Okay, that just means it could stand for any number. When you have A divided by B equals C, A is the dividend, B is the divisor, and the answer C is the quotient. Good. So if I have 4 divided by 2 equals 2, this 4 is the dividend, right? This 2 is the divisor, and this 2 is the quotient. We also know we can write division like this, right? The 4 is the dividend, the 2 is the divisor, and this 2 is the quotient. Now, I'm going to pause it for a second. Okay, here's today's problem. Janice skates 3 miles in 0.6 of an hour. What is Janice's speed? So speed is always calculated in miles per hour. So we want to find out if she can go 3 miles in 0.6 hours. We want to find out how much she can go in 1 hour. So what would our equation be? What's her total distance? 3 miles. And how many hours do we have to divide that by? 0.6, right? That's our equation. What is our dividend? Our dividend is, Atharva?
3.
What is our divisor? Dara, what's our divisor? 6/10. Is our divisor decimals as we expected? Okay. It's hard to divide like this, so let's write it into the other way. So remember, the dividend always lives in the house. The divisor's knocking on the door. And what's going to be on the roof? The quotient. Now, when you are dividing, this is important now. When you are dividing by a divisor that has a decimal, when your divisor has a decimal, you can't divide. So we have to get rid of the decimal. Now, how can we get rid of the decimal? If we move it one spot over to the right, would that be getting rid of the decimal? Would that make it a whole number?
Yes.
If I have 0.6 and I move this decimal over one spot to the right, I would get 6, right? Can we divide by the whole number 6? So, we also know, this is where it gets a little complicated, we know that 3 divided by 0.6 is the same as 3 over 0.6 because we know that about fractions, right? Can I multiply the top and the bottom of the fraction by 10 and still have the same number? Can I multiply this by 10 over 10? Is 10 over 10 the same as 1? Can I multiply by 1? So can I multiply 3 over 0.6 by 10 over 10? Okay, if I were to multiply the bottom by 10, will that get rid of the decimal?
Yeah.
Oh, so is that the same as 30 over 6? Because if I multiply 3 times 10 and 0.6 by 10, I get 30 over 6, don't I? So now, can I divide 30 divided by 6? What is 30 divided by 6, incidentally? Swati? 5. So what is Janice's speed? 5 miles per hour. Okay, now write this down. This is the rule. You want to multiply the dividend and the divisor by 10 until the divisor doesn't have a decimal point. 12 divided by 5 hundredths. First, let's write it as a fraction. How can I write 12 divided by 5 hundredths as a fraction? Go ahead and write it down. Kevin?
You could make 4 little 0.05 on the door.
Well, okay, so that's the same as 12 divided by 0.05, right? But I want to write it as a fraction. Is that a fraction?
Oh,
No. So how can I write this as a fraction?
12 over 0.05.
Good. And we don't want there to be decimals, right, in the divisor. We really don't like decimals in the divisor. Are there decimals in the divisor right now?
Yeah.
Okay. So we know because the denominator is always the divisor, right? And we don't like those decimals. So what can I multiply 0.05 by to get no decimals? Dara?
100 over 100.
Good. So I have to multiply the bottom by 100, which means I also therefore have to multiply the top by 100. So what's 12 times 100?
1,200.
1,200. And then when I multiply the bottom by 100, I simply move over 2 decimal points and I get
5.
So now my new equation is 1,200 divided by 5. Can we do that? I think we can. 1,200 divided by 5. 5 goes into 1 how many times?
0.
Okay, 5 goes into 12 how many times then?
2.
2. 2 times 5, 10. Minus 10, 2. Bring down the 0. 5 goes into 20 4 times, right? And then 20, 0. And then I have to bring down this 0, don't I? And then, so I have 0 here, right?
Yeah.
So what is my answer? 12 divided by 0.05 is
240.
240. Now, we're not really done because we know we need to check to multiply. So if we know that 12 divided by 0.05 is 240, how can I check to multiply? I mean, multiply to check. I don't know why I always want to say check to multiply. Aditya, what can I multiply to check?
You can, I think you can multiply,
So if I have 240 times 0.05, 5 times 0 is 0. 5 times 4 is? Carry the 2. 5 times 2 is? Add 2. 12. And then the rest are all zeros, right? So I can just ignore that. So how many numbers do I want after the decimal point? Because I have 0 in this factor and 2 in this factor, right? So 1, 2. My answer is 12. Is that what I wanted?
Yes.
Very good. Check. And done. Will you walk us through how to do this one?
Okay, first you write it in the long division, right?
Okay, so 1.8 divided by 0.9, right?
Yeah.
But first I want you to write it as a fraction. So how could you write this as a fraction?
0.9
Is it 0. Is it the dividend over the divisor, or is it the divisor over the dividend? It's the divisor over the dividend? So to write this in fraction form, it's 1.8 over 0.9, right? Remember, it's always the dividend over the divisor because it's the dividend divided by the divisor. Do we want decimals in the divisor?
No.
No, right? And do we have decimals in the divisor right now?
Yes.
Okay, so what do we have to multiply by? 10 over 10. Okay. And we know when we multiply by 10, all we need to do is move the decimal point over to the... Okay, so what's our new fraction? 18 over 9. Do we know 18 divided by 9 off the top of our heads?
Yes.
What is that?
2.
Are we done?
Yes. No.
What do we need to do?
Check your work.
Okay, so we know that 1.8 divided by 0.9 is 2, so what can we multiply to check? Vienna? 9 times 2?
Yeah.
It's 0.9, right? Careful, 0.9 times 2. What is 9 times 2? 18. How many numbers do we need after the decimal point? 1. Good. Is our answer the one we wanted? Good.